Good day, everyone. Today we're going to talk all about the anatomy of cells and physiology of cells. But first, we're going to discuss the anatomy of the cell. So, we have the learning objectives. 1. Identify the cell structures and functions. 2. Describe the functions of major organelles. 3. Explore the membrane structures and their functions. 4. Explain the roles of enzymes in metabolic reactions. And the last one is define the concept of cell metabolism. So, we have the table of contents, the functional anatomy of the cells, cell membranes, cytoplasms and organelles, nucleus, cytoskeleton, cell connections, the big picture of cell anatomy and the whole body, and movement of substances through the cells. So we have the metabolism also, the big picture of cells, physiology in the whole body mechanism of disease. So those table of contents or yung nakaloob dyan is itatakal natin isa-isa. So we have a quote here by Bruce Alberts. The cell is the smallest unit of life that can be replicate independently, and cells are often called the building blocks of life. So, before we proceed to our discussions, magkakaroon tayo ng activities. So, you're just going to guess the words and identify the picture. Thank you everyone for participating in our engaging activity. So all your answers is correct. So next we have the analogy factory. So para mas maintindihan natin kung paano nga ba yung cells nag-work sa ating katawan. So factory is our nucleus or siya yung nag-holds ng factory instructional manual. Next is the cell membrane. So, siya yung door natin. And si cell membrane ang nagko-control na kung sino yung lalabas or pwedeng pumasok inside the nucleus. We have the public area or the cytoplasm. So, dito lahat nagaganap yung mga activity. Next is we have the mitochondria or the power station. So, si mitochondria ang nagbibigay ng energy doon sa factory or sa ating nucleus. So, we have the endoplasmic reticulum or the delivery tract. So, si delivery tracts, siya yung nagtatransport ng goods throughout the factory. Next is we have the Golgi apparatus. So, or yung ating packaging center. Siya yung nagpe-prepare and nag-ship ng items. We have the lysosomes, yung ating recycling area. Siya yung nagbe-breakdown and nagre-reuse ng mga waste product. So, last one, we have the cytoskeleton or the framework. So, siya naman yung nagbibigay ng structure and support sa ating nucleus. So, now we can proceed to our main discussion. The anatomy of cells. So, cell membrane. Cell membrane or the plasma membrane is the outer boundary of the cell. So, cell membrane is made up of bipolar phospholipid molecules with their non-polar tail na nakaturo sa isa't isa. So, if you notice the 4 dots na kulay red, yun yung cholesterol molecule. So, tinutulungan niya yung phospholipid bilayers to prevent the breakage. Next, we have the membranous organelle, sacs and canals made of the same materials as the plasma membrane. So, ganun din, it's made up of bilayer phospholipids, and yung membrane material na yun is very thin sheet. So, napakanipis niya that a range of 75 angstrom. So, yun yung thin sheet na yun is gawa sa lipid, protein, and other molecules. Next, we have the fluid mosaic model. So, molecules of the cell membrane are arranged in a sheet. So, The mosaic of molecules is fluid, so fluid daw siya. That is, the molecules are able to float around slowly. So, nakakapag-float yung or nasa ibabaw yung ating mga molecules. So, if you know the icebergs in the ocean, ganun yung ating fluid mosaic. So, this model illustrates that the molecules of the cell membrane form a continuous sheet. So, dire-diretso siya. Next, chemical attractions are the forces that hold membranes together. So, ang chemical attractions are ang nagpapanatili sa ating membranes or the cell membranes. Next, groupings of membrane molecules form wraps that float as a unit in the membrane. Wraps may pinch inward to bring material into the cell or organelle. Primary structure of a cell membrane is a double layer of phospholipids molecules. So, ayun nga, ang primary structure niya is the double layer of phospholipid molecules. Next, yung phospholipid natin is my head and tail. So, heads are the hydrophilic or the water-loving, and the tails are the hydrophilic water-feeding. So, they arrange themselves in bilayers in water. Next, cholesterol molecules are scattered among the phospholipids to allow the membrane to function properly at the body temperature. So most of the bilayer is hydrophobic, therefore water or water-soluble molecules do not pass through easily. So because of the different molecular interactions with the membrane, it allows the formation of wraps. As you can see in the picture, the sheet of phospholipid is stabilized by cholesterol or pinapatatag niya or pinapatibay. So it maintains the boundary of a cell. So next, we have the integral membrane proteins or the IMPs. So a cell control what moves through the membrane by means of IMPs embedded in the phospholipid bilayer. So the IMPs proteins control the transport of water soluble molecules from one compartment to another. Next, some IMPs have carbohydrate attached to them, and as a result, from glycoproteins that act as identification makers. Some IMPs have carbohydrates or sugar molecules attached to them to form the glycoproteins. Next, some IMPs is sila yung receptors that react to specific chemicals, sometimes permitting a process called signal transduction. So, transduction means to carry across. Next is the cytoplasm and organelles. Cytoplasm, it is a gel-like internal substance of cells that includes many organelles suspended in watery intracellular fluid called cytosol. So we have the two major groups of organelles. One is the membranous organelles or sacs or canals made of cell membranes. Two is the non-membranous organelles are made of microscopic filaments or another non-membranous materials. Sa membranous nucleus naman, it is similar to the cell membrane. So, inaalaw nito to create a distinct environments within the cell, katulad ng nucleus, mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus, and the lysosome. Pagdating naman sa non-membranous organelles, they are typically composed of protein filaments like ribosomes, centrioles, and cytoskeleton. So, later on, di-discuss natin siya. So next, we have the two types of endoplasmic reticulum. One is the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Ribosomes dot the outer surface of the membranous wall. So, yung makikita nyo mga dot na yun is ribosomes. Ribosomes synthesis proteins which move forward to the Golgi apparatus and then eventually leave the cells. So, the function of ribosomes in protein synthesis and intracellular transportation. So next we have the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. So no ribosomes border the membranous wall. So yung function niya are less well established and probably more varied that for the rough endoplasmic reticulum. So the smooth endoplasmic reticulum synthesizes the certain lipids and carbohydrate and creates membranes for us throughout the cell. So the SER removes and stores the calcium ion cells inferior. So, tinatransform niya yung calcium ion sa bawat sacs. Next, we have the ribosomes. Ribosomes mainly are attached to the rough endoplasmic reticulum and may lie free scattered throughout the cytoplasm. So, kung makikita niyo yung maliliit na dot na yun, that is the ribosome. So, si ribosomes is a non-membranous structure that made up of tiny pieces of and so, meron tayong small unit and large subunit of ribosome. So, each ribosome is a non-membranous structure made of two pieces, a large subunit and a small subunit, which compose of RNA and protein. Next, we have the Golgi apparatus. So, it is a membranous organelle consisting of two crestiny stacked on one another and located near the nucleus. So, sometimes it's called the Golgi complex. So, process protein molecules from the endoplasmic reticulum. So, si Golgi apparatus is involved in processing and packaging molecules or yung proteins that are synthesized by the ribosome on the rough endoplasmic reticulum. So, Golgi consists of stalk, membrane-bound sacs or yung tinatawag nating crestinae that located near the nucleus. Processed proteins leaves the final cristerna in a vesicle. Contents may then be secreted to outside the cell. So, once na makapasok na sila sa cristerna or cristernae, yung mga proteins ay magta-travel palabas ng cristerna at ang final destination nila is sa plasma membrane. So, at the plasma membrane, the vesicles release their contents outside the cell in the process called secretion. So, dito na sila mapupunta. Next, we have lysosomes. It's made of microscopic membranous sacs that have pinched off from the Golgi apparatus. So, si lysosomes are formed by the vehicles that pinch off or humiwalay doon sa Golgi apparatus. Next, the cell's own digestive system. Enzymes in lysosomes digest the protein structure of defective cell parts, including integral membrane proteins and particles that have become trapped in the cell. So, si lysosome ay tinatawag din na digestive system dahil ang naglalaman ito ng enzyme na tumutulong mag-digest o mag-breakdown ng ilang bahagi ng cells natin. So, katulad lang din siya kung paano tayo mag-digest ng food sa ating katawan. Next, we have the photosomes. With hollow protein cylinders found throughout the cytoplasm. So, it's breakdown of normal misfolded protein and normal proteins that no longer needed by the cells and which may cause diseases. So si photosome is another important organelle in the cell that is responsible for breaking down the unwanted or the damaged protein. So it breaks down the protein molecules one at a time by tagging each one with a chain of ubiquitin molecules, unfolding it as enters the proteasome and then breaking apart peptide bonds. So, it is different from the lysosomes. Kung si lysosome is nagdadigest ng maraming proteins ng sabay-sabay, ang protosome naman ay binawasak or binabasag yung protein isa-isa. Peroxisomes is the small membranous sacs containing enzymes that detoxify harmful substances that enter the cell. So, ang peroxisome ay isang uri ng physical or maliliit na bubbles na naglalaman ng mga enzyme at syempre matatagpuan siya sa cytoplasms ng isang cell. So, si peroxisomes is siya yung nag-aalis ng mga nakakalasons na substance na pumapasok sa cell or yung tinatawag nating detoxification. So, siya yung nag-detoxify ng mga harmful or nakakalasons na substance. So, madalas itong matatagpuan sa cells ng ating liver and kidney. We have the mitochondria. It is made up of microscopic sacs, wall composed of inner and outer membranes that's separated by fluid. So, thousands of particles make up of enzymes, molecules attached to both membrane. So, yung mitochondria natin is the cell's power plant. It's because they generate most of the energy that the cells need to function. So, ang mga enzymes sa mitochondria ang nagpapabilis ng reactions ng oxidation. So each mitochondrion has a DNA molecule which allow it to produce its own enzymes that replicate copies of itself. So, mitochondria is that they have their own DNA and syempre nag-allow siya to make some of their own enzymes and divide it para gumawa ng bagong mitochondria that are genetically identical to the parent mitochondria. So next we have the nucleus. Nucleus is a spherical body in center of cell, enclosed by an envelope with many pores as structures. So yan, kung makikita nyo sa image, yun yung nucleus. So nuclear consists of a nuclear envelope composed of two membranes, which is essentially the same molecular structure as the plasma membrane surrounding nucleoplasm. So, yung two nucleus natin is tinatawag na nuclear envelope. So, yung mga membrane na yun ay may mga nuclear pores or mga butas, and ito yung tumutulong sa paglipat ng mga molecules papasok and palabas ng nucleus. So, nuclear envelope has a hole, yun nga, and called nuclear pores. Nuclear pores complex NCPS are elaborate gateway into out of the nucleus. So, si NCPS ay isang gatekeeper. Siya yung nagko-control kung anong nucleus. Siya yung nagko-control kung ano yung molecules structure ang pwedeng pumasok or lumabas mula sa nucleus. So, functions of the nucleus are functions of DNA molecules. DNA determines both of the structure and functions of cell heredity. So, meaning si DNA ang master code na nagsasabi kung paano gagawin ang RNA sa iba't ibang enzyme at proteins ng cell. Next, we have the cytoskeleton. So, si cytoskeleton is the cell's internal supporting framework. Katulad siya ng mga bony skeleton sa ating katawan. So, si cytoskeleton is made up of tiny, flexible fibers and rigid, rod-like pieces. So, pieces, as you can see in the picture. And also, the cytoskeleton provides the support for cell shape and tumutulong din ito sa pagpapagalaw ng mga cell part and detect the changes inside and outside the cells. Next, we have the cell fiber. Intricately arranged fibers of varying length that form a three-dimensional, irregularly shaped lattice. So, fibers appear to support the endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria, and the free ribosomes. So, ang cell's fibers ay mga estruktura na natatagpuan sa cytoskeleton o isang internal framework ng cells. So, mga fibers na ito is nagbibigay ng support at tumutulong sa paggalaw ng mga bahagi ng cell. So, hindi agad nalaman ang tungkol sa fibers na to not until na ma-discover nila ang paggamit ng fluorescent molecules at stereomicroscopy. Cell fiber serves as cellular muscles made of thin twisted strands of protein molecules that lie parallel to the long axis of the cells, can slide past each other and cause shortening of the cell. So, ito is microfilament. So, the microfilament is mahalaga sa paggalaw ng cells. For example, sa ating muscle cells. So, ang mga microfilaments is nagtutulungan yan at pinapalakas ang cells upang mag-shorten o lumiit. Kaya't nagkakaroon tayo ng lakas at paggalaw ang ating kalamnan at katawan. Next, the intermediate filaments. Twisted protein strands is slightly thicker than microfilaments, form of the supporting framework in many cell types. So, ang ating intermediate is medyo mas makapal kumpara sa microfilament. So, binubuo rin siya ng twisted protein strand. Ang mga intermediate filaments is nagsisilbing tendons at ligaments ng ating cell. Next is the made of protein subunits arranged in a spiral fashion. So, ito naman yung microtubules. Their function is to move things around inside the cell. So, ang microtubules ay mga makakapal and hollow tubes na gawa sa mga protein subunits na nakaayos sa naka-spiral fashion. So, tinatawag siyang enzymes ng cell dahil silang responsible sa paggalaw ng mga organelles, vesicles, at pati na rin sa paggalaw ng chromosomes sa tuwing naghahati yung cell. Next, we have the centrosome. So, centrosome is a crucial part of the cell that helps coordinate the constructions and disassembly of microtubules in the cytoplasm. So, this is some non-membranous structures also called the microtubule organizing center or the MTOC. So, because it plays a central role in organizing the cells, microtubules, and the general location of the centrome is identified by the centroles. So, under a light microscope, centroles appear as two dots near the nucleus. So, yan siya. So, next we have the molecular motors. Motors proteins include thymine, myosin, and kinesin. So, molecular motors can be pulled larger structure along microtubules and microfilaments as if along a track providing intracellular transport and movement of the entire cell. So next we have the cell extension. So cytoskeleton forms projections that extend the plasma membrane outward to form tiny finger-like process. There are three types of the process. Each has a specific function. We have the microvilli, cilia, and flagella. So next is the cell connection. Cells are held together by fibrous nets that surround groups of cells. Muscles or cells have direct connections to each other. So we have three types of direct cell connections. We have desmosome and gap junctions and tight junctions. So let's move on to the physiology of the cell. So movement of substances through cell membranes. So we have the passive transport processes. It is passive transport processes do not require any energy expenditure of the cell membrane. So we have the diffusion. So diffusion is a passive process. Molecules spread out through the membranes and molecules move from an area of high concentration from high concentration to an area of low concentration down concentration gradient. So as molecules diffuses, a state of equilibrium will occur. So next we have the simple diffusion. So molecules across through the phospholipid bilayer solutes and permeate the membrane. Therefore, we call the membrane permeable. You have the osmosis. It is a diffusion of water through a selective permeable membrane. Limits diffusion of at least some of the solute particles. Now, water pressure that develops as a result of osmosis is called osmotic pressure. So under osmosis, we have isotonic. It describes a fluid having the same potential osmotic pressure as cytosols. Next is the hypotonic or the lower pressure, and the last one is the hypertonic or the higher pressure. Next, we have the facilitated diffusion. So, facilitated diffusion is a mediated passive transport. So we have the channel mediated passive transport. So the channels are specific, allow only one type of solute to pass through. So specific lang sila kung sino yung pwedeng papasukin. Next is the carrier mediated passive transport. Carriers attract and bind to the solute, changes shape, and release the solute out of the other side of the carrier. So next, we have the role of passive transport processes. So ang passive transport ay isang proseso ng paggalaw ng mga molecules na hindi na kailangan ng energy mula sa cell. So sa madaling salita, yung energy is ginagamit sa transportation ay mula sa energy molecular collisions o yung pagkakasalubong ng mga molecules o yung pagbabanggaan nila habang sila is gumagalaw. So ang passive transport ay umaasa lamang sa natural na galaw ng mga molecules. So, we have the active transport processes. Require the expenditure of metabolic energy by the cell. We have the transport by pumps. So, for example, the calcium pumps and the potassium pumps. Yung calcium pumps sa molecules, nililipat nila yung calcium ions sa special compartments or out of the cell. So, this is important because the concentration of calcium ions in the cell needs to be kept low during rest of the muscle to function properly. So, ang sodium pumps naman is need niya i-maintain ang low and high concentration inside the cell. So, mahalaga to sa function ng mga cells tulad ng nerve impulse and muscle constructions. Next, we have the transport by vesicles. So, allow substances to enter or leave the interior of a cell without actually moving through its plasma membrane. So, we have the endocytosis. So, once na matrap sa endocytosis, the plasma membrane traps some extracellular material and brings it into the cell in a vehicle. So, once na matrap, tinutulak nito papasok yung mga particles sa loob ng cell, and when the membrane fuses together, they form by small vesicles. So, ayan yung mga bubble structure na yan. So, we have the two basic types of endocytosis. One is the phagocytosis and the second is the pinocytosis. So, phagocytosis is a condition of cell eating. So, dito, ini-involve niya yung mga large particles like the microorganisms. Kung makikita nyo sa pictures, yung plasma membrane nakapalibot sa mga large particles and form vesicles para makapasok yung cells. So, once na nasa loob na yung mga cells, the vesicle fuse with lysosomes which digest the particles. So, ang pinocytosis naman is a condition of cell thinking. So, cell drinking siya. So, the molecules, a process kung saan ang cell ay kumukuha ng mga fluids and substances na natutunaw, and syempre papasok yun sa cell and regulate the plasma membrane. Next, we have the exocytosis. So, ito naman is opposite sa endocytosis. So, it is a process by which large molecules, notably proteins, can leave the cells even though they are too large to move out through the plasma membrane. So, in other words, exocytosis is naglalabas ng mga materials na hindi na kailangan. Next, we have the cell metabolism. So, cell metabolism is a set of chemical reactions in a cell. Catabolism, we have catabolism. It breaks large molecules into smaller ones and usually releases energy. So we have the anabolism, builds large molecules from a smaller one, usually consume energy. So kung si catabolism is sinisira niya yung mga molecules, si anabolism naman is binubuo niya yung mga molecules. Si catabolism is siya yung nagre-release ng energy, and si anabolism naman is siya yung nagko-consume ng energy. Next, we have the role of enzyme. So, enzyme chemically are chemical catalysts that reduce the activation energy needed for a reaction. Enzyme regulate cell metabolism. So, sa chapter 2 or sa report ni Thea, inintroduce dun si enzyme ay mga functional protein. So, ngayon, paano nga gumagana sa enzyme? So, yung mga chemical reactions na bumubuo sa isang metabolic pathway sa loob ng cells is hindi siya karaniwan nangyayari ng kusa. So, sa normal body temperature natin, ng katawan natin, yung mga activation energy na kailangan para magsimula, ang chemical reaction is masyadong mataas para sa mga molecules to start or to react on their own. So, ibig sabihin, kailangan niya ng tulong. And dito papasok si catalyst. So, si catalyst is a substance that lowers the amount of activation energy to start a chemical reaction. So, si catalyst ang tumutulong sa chemical reaction para hindi sila nagbabago or nagiging bahagi ng reaction. Next, we have the chemical structure of enzyme. Proteins of a complex shape. The active site is where the enzyme molecule fits the substrate molecule, the lock and key model. So, enzymes are usually tertiary or quaternary proteins are of complex shape. Their shape is very intricate or komplikado and involves of several level of folding. So, kung makikita nyo dito, so, diba, napakadami niyang folding. So, sa enzyme is naglalaman ng protein component or tinatawag na cofactor, which can be inorganic, ion, or vitamin. So, classification and naming of enzyme. Enzyme usually have an ASE or ACE ending with the first part of the word signifying the substrate or the type of reaction catalyzed with signifying reaction catalyzed. So, we have the oxidation reduction enzyme, so known as oxidasis or hydrogenesis, and the hydrogenesis energy releases depends on this enzyme. So, si oxidase enzyme that catalyze the oxidation of a substrate, or siya yung nagpa-facilitate ng mga loss of electrons. Si hydrogenesis naman, this enzyme remove the hydrogen, so siya yung nagtatagal ng hydrogen atoms doon sa molecules. It's typically as part of an oxidation reaction. Si hydrogenesis naman, enzyme that facilitates the addition of, siya naman yung nagbibigay ng or nag-a-add sa ating hydrogen atoms doon sa molecules. Next, hydrolyzing enzymes or hydrolysis. So, digestive enzymes belong to this group. So this enzyme break down molecules by adding water. So for example, si lipase, it break down the lipids or yung fats. Si sucrase naman, it break down the sucrose or yung sugar natin. Si maltase naman, breaks down the maltose, also sugar. Next, we have the phosphorylating enzyme. So, si phosphorylating enzyme, siya yung nag-add or remove sa ating phosphate group. Next, enzymes that add or remove the carbon dioxide. We have carbolasis, carboxylasis, or the carboxylasis. So si carboxylasis, siya yung nag-add ng carbon dioxide. And si decarboxylasis naman, siya yung nag-remove ng carbon dioxide. So, itong enzyme na to is important sa Krebs cycles and photosynthesis. So, next, we have the enzyme that rearrange atoms within a molecules. So, we have the mutazazor isomerase. So, synthesize enzymes that catalyze the movement of chemical group within the same molecule. Si isomerases naman, enzymes that convert a molecule into one of its isomers. So, the last one is si hydrolysis. Add water to a molecule without splitting it. So si hydrolysis naman, hydrolysis, siya yung nag-add ng water sa molecule nang hindi natatapon, unlike sa hydrolysis. So, hydrolysis are less common, but is still important in the certain biochemical reaction. So, next we have the general functions of enzyme. Enzymes regulate cell functions by regulating metabolic pathways. So, si enzyme is specific siya sa kanyang action. So, various chemical and physical agents known as allostatic effectors affect enzyme action by changing the shape of the enzyme molecule. So, for example, ng allostatic effectors include the temperature, hydrogen ion, or the concentration, ionizing radiation, cofactors, and end products of certain metabolic pathways. So, we have the general functions of enzyme. So, most enzyme catalyze a chemical reaction in both directions. So, parehas silang nasa direction. So, enzymes are continually being destroyed and continually being replaced. So, many enzymes are perisynthesized as an active proenzyme. So, nasisira sila pero napapalitan. Like, parang bumabalik din sa dati. Next, we have the cellular respiration, the pathway by which glucose is broken down to yield its stored energy. So, importante ito sa ating cell catabolism, cellular respiration. So, meron tayong three pathways that are chemically linked. We have the glycolysis, citric acid, and electron transport. So, sa glycolysis, it is a pathway in which glucose is broken apart into pyruvic acid molecules to yield a small amount of energy. So, which is transported by the ATP and the NADH. So, it includes many chemical reactions that follow one another. So, each regulated by a specific enzyme. So it is anaerobic or it requires no oxygen. So sa glycolysis, hindi siya nagre-require ng oxygen. It occurs within cytosol. So outside the mitochondria. So makikita natin siya sa cytosol. Next is the citric acid cycle. Kung si glycolysis is hindi nagre-require ng oxygen, dito naman sa citric acid cycle is it requires the oxygen. So kung paano kung available si oxygen? Next, we have the electron transport system. So, yung nakikita nating NADH and si FADH2 is yan yung mga byproduct from glycolysis and citric acid cycle. So, sila yung nagdadala ng energy electron mula sa electron transport. So, how does it work? So, si electron move through the protein. So, once na mag-move si electron papunta sa protein, si protons is lalabas naman yan or magpa-pump out. So, once na mag-pump out si protons, yung protons is magpo-flow back. So, after nun, yung oxygen is the final electron acceptor. So, after the electrons have moved through the train, they need to go somewhere. And then, si oxygen yung tatanggap nun. So, oxygen combines with electrons and protons to form water. So, si ATP is produced which the cell uses for energy. And si water naman is na-form when oxygen accepts the electron. So that's all for my discussion, and we have the assessment. You're going to answer our assessment and I will post it on the GC na lang. So thank you.